Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third presentation for first day of our games gathering in Bratislava. Today we have Syed. Syed is a senior environment artist from Redhill Games. He'll tell us something I believe very interesting about material creation for the video games. So, Syed, thank you very much, and please have fun.
Okay, should I? Okay,
Yes.
so hello everyone. I am Syed Abbas Rizvi. I am a senior environment artist at Redhill Games. I'm working in this gaming industry for almost 13 years now and worked on multiple titles. So today's workshop is all about material creations for games, how materials are important, and what are the best practices that we can do for material creations. So let's go forward. So this is the introduction I already given. This is my email address and artist station and my website. If you want to note down, please note it down. In case if you have any question later on, you can ask me anytime. Feel free to ask. Okay, moving forward. There you go. These are the few titles that I worked so far in my career. I started my first project was Batman Arkham Knight. I work on that, and then I work on Forza, then Payday, Knack, Walking Dead, Prey, Death Standing, Control, Hello, and the last one was 95. Now I'm working on Blizzard project at Redhill Games. So yes, let's move forward. Agenda for today's workshop. The first thing that we're gonna cover in this workshop is approaching material. How you gonna approach a material? What are the things that you keep in your mind when you approach a material? The first thing, like priority wise, like what is gonna be first, what is gonna be second, and what is gonna so on and so forth. Then we're gonna do a material breakdown and see how what are the best practices that are needed while you're creating material, keeping in your mind like what are the best thing and what are the best practices that you can do while you're creating the materials for your even for your future. If you want to work on the material later on, what are the things that you need to consider while you're creating that. Then and at the end of the session, we will going through portfolio material and game ready material. What's the difference between both of them? What are the things that you need to keep in your mind when you're creating a portfolio material or a game ready material? There's a bit difference in both of them, so we will cover that as well. So moving forward, first thing first, whenever you have to, if I whenever I create any material or anything, to be honest, not just material, anything, it could be architecture, it could be anything. First thing we do, reference gathering. So there are three things that I always keep in my mind when I'm gathering materials. First, I will gather the key reference, which is my main material that I am kind of focusing, and that's gonna be my final result. Then I try to find supporting reference for that material, and after that I find reference that is light response, like reference for the light response, how the material will reflect in different light and how it reacts in different light scenarios. So these are the three type of reference that I use to gather. We will go through deep in this one in our slides, so let's do that. There you go. So this is, for example, this is my main reference, key reference, and I want to create a sidewalk. There's a concrete sidewalk with like with big slabs, like 4 meter or 2 meter slabs. So I got this reference, and this is my key reference. So moving forward, what I will do, I will try to find, and it's always good to find a key reference which is very neutral. It's not in it's not super heavily affected with the light. For example, in the night or when it's like super sunny, then you might not be able to see the exact color. So it's always good to gather your key reference in a very subtle lighting situation where you can get the actual tone of that material and the actual details of that material. After that, you can gather different references and supporting references for your material in different light scenarios. So moving forward, there you go. So this is the supporting reference. So as you can see, the bottom left reference is like a brand new sidewalk, and you're looking at that reference, you can easily get understand one thing, that the borders are quite shiny, and the rest of the center pieces are not that shiny. So that means you get at least one key feature of your material, that okay, I have to do something on my reference when I'm creating this material, that the borders are shinier and the inner part is not that shiny. So you get one key feature of your reference. Then you go forward and look at the second one next to it. Then you can see it's new, but it's a little bit used, it's not brand new. So you can see a little bit of stains, like white stains and little bit of dirt here and there. So you can get an idea, okay, if I want to make my material a little bit used, so I need to add those details. So you're gathering more and more detail just looking at the references now. Then I go forward and I look at the top left reference, the first one. Then you can see there are a lot of black spots also in the reference. And this is like when it's quite used and there are states people are walking on that, their shoe has like dirt and everything, you get these type of marks and stains on the surface. So there is another feature that you get looking at the another reference. Next to it there is a reference in which you can see some grass coming out of the crevices or the occluded area of this material. But although it doesn't look like exactly the same material that I am gonna make, but it's kind of a very similar material. It's a concrete as well. So maybe I'm not gonna put a grass in my material, but it's a good feature that I know if there's a favorable condition and the weather, for example, is moist and it has some sun, grass might grow in the crevices and the occluded area. So maybe I will not put the grass, but I could put a little bit of green color if I want to add a little bit of extra feature to my material. So this type of thing is really good to improve and good some kind of good features to your materials. And if we go forward and looking at our next reference, the third one from the top, you can see some black spots on that. And it could be chewing gum, I guess. These are chewing, but I might not need to put that much of chewing gum spots on my reference on my material, but I might use one or two spots and it will look good on in my material. So it's kind of a good element to add to your material. So just looking at these references, you already gather so much of elements for your material. So when you start to create your material, I have like 4 or 5 elements that I need to put in my material, and if you implement those, your material automatically look good. And you have a proper hierarchy to do that. Like first you make the base material, then you add a little bit of dirt, and then more, and maybe a little bit of greenish color in the crevices, and on top of that you might add few chewing gum spots that gives better visuals to your material. On the right hand side you can see it's the end part of the sidewalk. I don't need that in my material, but it's always good to know how you're gonna end up and how it's gonna be interacting and how it looks at the end of the curves. And because later on we have to handle this, so we might need to create a separate material or something like that, unique material for this. But it's always good to know how it's gonna be used in the game. So it's a sidewalk, so surely there will be some kind of curves like that and how it's gonna be made. So it's always good to gather those references as well. So sorry. Okay. So moving forward, this one. Here, this is the reference gathering for light response. So if you look my first reference, it looks very flat and it looks like the surface don't reflect at all. It's very blunt, but it was in a shadow. But if you look at the next reference, which is like in the artificial lighting, and then you can see some spots are quite shiny on the surface. It's not like totally blend. So the thing here is you get the element, okay, this surface is a bit shiny as well. Maybe there are some chewing gums or some kind of dirt accumulated on top of the surface, that's why it's shiny. So you understand, okay, the surface has some kind of reflection going on. uh, Looking at your third reference, and when the artificial light directly hitting on this surface, you can see it's quite shiny. So that from there you can also understand, okay, this surface could be shiny in different light scenarios. So you have to make your roughness map or whatever, like if you are going with glossiness, you can go with the glossiness, but I usually use metallic and roughness, so I will go with that. So if you are making your roughness map, you make it quite dark in your roughness map, so that it looks quite shiny, especially the end pieces and the corner pieces of the material. It's not like the first reference is totally non-reflective. It has some reflection. So always gather multiple references in different light scenarios. That it's a very good practice. And the last reference is not necessarily very important, but at the time of when you are making it, but it's always good to gather this type of references. Like this is quite wet and it's after a rainy day or something like that. So you can see how the surface react when it's wet. It's a good practice to gather that type of reference as well, because it's a sidewalk. You can maybe in the game you will blend it with a puddle, or it could be a different it's the material could be used in different locations where it could be rainy or it could be dry. So you should know how your surface reacts with when it's wet and dry. So yeah, I mean that's one thing that you should also keep in your mind, that okay, how your surface react in different weather conditions and how it's going to reflect and how it's going to look. It's always good to gather those type of references. So moving forward, here's a basic component of a material or a texture, uh, or we call it DNA of a material. So there are two basic components. One is dielectric and metallic, or we also call it metallic and non-metallic as well. So whenever you start any material, the first thing that you kind of look at it after looking at the material, okay, is it metallic or non-metallic? First thing, because both of the materials, if it's metallic or non-metallic, are treated very differently. Because metallic have some limitations, especially if you're working with Unreal. The albedo range is quite short, so you don't have that much freedom to have lot of different range of albedos when you're working with metallic surface. But on the other hand, if you're working with non-metallic or dielectric, you have more freedom and you can have a really even darker albedos in your dielectric materials. But first thing, you need to understand whether it's a metallic or not, then you go forward with the different processes. One thing that's also important, it's easy to differentiate whether it's a metallic or non-metallic. The first image where you have a lot of pink, green, blue, and red balls, you can see the specular on this surface is white, and on the rest of those two images are metallic balls. So you can see the reflection on those are kind of same color what the base color is. So the biggest difference at looking at any material, you can easily guess if the reflection of a material is white, that means it's dielectric. And if the reflection, like the how it's reflecting, the specular highlight on your material is almost similar to the color to the almost similar to your base color, then that means it's a metallic surface. It's a very, you can easily recognize your metallic and non-metallic surface just looking at your material with this kind of uh, specular highlights. Okay, so moving forward, weathering and aging. This is a very important element of material creation or texture creation. How old your material is, the material is new or the material is old, and what are the natural processes this material goes through so that it looks like a particular way, like it could be new or it could be old. So looking at the reference here, like my first image, the brick, you can see uh, the it's quite new. It's a very flat color, little bit of white spot, and that's it. Even the mortar in the crevices in the occluded area is quite white. There is not much dirt accumulated over there. So looking at the reference, I can easily say it's a very newly made material, and a texture, or not a texture, or surface. But looking at the second image, you can see, oh, it's a bit old, and it's there for a while in the open area. And you can see the mortar is not darker because it's occluded area, and dust will accumulate in those area and it become darker. You can see some leaks going on because there should be raining, and you can see some white spots here and there. And because of rain and sun, few bricks got desaturated. There is a color saturation going on and the color difference on the surface. And then you go forward and look at the third image, and it looks quite worn. So the thing is it looks like it's being in the going through a lot of natural processes, raining, and it's going, and the surf and the where the brick was placed, it was quite moist. That's why it has kind of greenish mortar, because there's some kind of mossy effect you can see in the crevices and the occluded area over here. And the bricks are quite saturated, like different colors. You can see different shades of bricks here because of the nature, a lot of natural process gone through over these surfaces. Few are like a little bit yellowish as well, and the greenish as well, few of the bricks. So that means this brick is quite old and has gone through a lot of natural processes. Looking at the last image, uh, this one, you can see it's quite old, but you can see a lot of mold on the surface, like white spots and everything. Looking at this image, I can easily say like, okay, wherever this brick is placed, it was quite moist and quite humid. That's why, and there was not much sun. So that's why you can get these type of molds on top of your brick. It could be placed in a sewer or any tunnel or something like that, where it's quite dark and it's super moist. So you can get those type of molds on top of your brick. So I mean, understanding the weathering of your material is really important, because if you understand the natural process what is gone through, it's easy to break down your materials. Because okay, first I will make my base brick, and then it gone through multiple processes. Maybe if it's new, then it could be a little bit of leaks because a little bit of rainy season was there, and then there was sun, and the few bricks are desaturated because of that. And then you go forward, and if it's like more old, then you add more and more weathering on top of that. But it's easier to understand when you know the weathering process properly. It's easier to understand and easier to implement those processes to your material and make your material look good and more alive, I would say. So the other important component is PBR, and nowadays everybody knows PBR is like how the surface react with light. So here one point I really want to raise, that oftentimes people get confused uh, with PBR, that how surface will react with light. I mean, people think in a way that okay, roughness and metallic are the map which are responsible for surface how it's going to react with light, but it's not true, because it's more dependent on your normal map rather than roughness map, because roughness control how much it reflects, but how it reflects, it's a different thing. It depends on your normal map. So looking at the image at the bottom, you can see angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection when the surface is very flat. But on the other hand, on the right hand side, you can see angle of reflection is different than the angle of incidence, because the surface is, it has quite a lot of noise on it. So your rays got deflected, and all the rays won't go back in the same direction. It will go in random directions according to your undulations on the surface. So it will not reflect that much of light in the same direction. That means the surface will not look that shiny. Not, doesn't matter how much you push your roughness map towards the darker value, it will look not shiny at all. So if you look at the first reference here, you can see the surface which are quite flat, it looks quite shiny in this cobblestone image. But the surfaces which has a lot of noise and undulation on surface doesn't look very shiny, and it looks quite rough. Although the roughness map is quite similar, but it won't look that shiny. That's the reason, because the normal map has a lot of detail on those surfaces, and the surface which are quite flat, it's quite flat normal, and the light is reflecting totally back, not going in a random direction, so it looks pretty reflective. Similar the last, there is another example, the second one. You can see few areas, few cobblestones are shinier, and few cobblestones are not that much shiny. So the last image is a good example, where all the, it's kind of a old cobblestone street, I would say, and a lot of people were walking on top of that, and all the surface get quite shiny and smooth. So you can see a streak of reflection going on that cobblestone actually, and you can understand, oh, it looks quite shiny because the surface is pretty flat. So this is quite important to understand, because oftentimes I have seen artists, especially the young artists, struggling with that, and they try to control their roughness map a lot to make it looking better shiny or maybe rougher, but they are not able to achieve it because there are not much detail in their normal map. They have to work on their normal as well, to control how the surface will react with the light. So normal map plays quite an important role when you are creating a material. Okay, so moving forward, workflow habits. So, as a I have been working in this industry for a while, so I have developed multiple different habits of working. So I want to share a few of them with you. What I feel like is those are important. So organization is pretty important when you are working on anything, not material, any other thing as well. As working on a Maya file or a Max file, it's always good to organize your files pretty well. For example, if you're working on a texture, it could be designer, it could be painter, it could be Photoshop. If you organize your file and layers properly, it's way easier to work on that later on. It might in production, there are a lot of chances where you start something and you are not able to complete it, and some other artists will jump onto it and they will complete it because you're busy with something else, maybe something on priority. So what happens if some other artist will jump onto your file? It's super difficult for that person to understand what's going on in that file if it's not properly organized. And it's not about experience or anything. Anybody will, if someone will jump onto your file and it's not organized, it's gonna be a difficult situation for anyone. It could be senior or mid-level, it doesn't matter. It's always difficult to understand someone's file. So even not other people, like oftentimes it happens like you are working on a material and there are some priority work pops up and you jump onto that, and you are busy on that work for 3 weeks or something or more than that, and then you come back to your old work and you open your, for example, designer file and you start working on it. And I can assure you, you will have difficult time if you come back after few months on your file and you are not properly arrange it and not properly framed it. You will have issue and you will feel difficulty even though it's paid by you. I mean, I have the same issues multiple time back there, so back in time. So but now I organize my graph and files much better so that it's easier to work with. Then the other point is layering. Yeah, always one good habit is like always work in layers. What I mean by here is like go one by one. Don't jump here and there when you are working on your material or a texture. Go like always go from slowly from big detail to medium detail and then to micro detail, and don't mix both of them together. For example, if I need to start a brick material, I will first make a brick base material, and then I will add medium details, and then I will go to micro details. But don't mix it. Like I add some big details, then a little bit of medium details, then I will add some micro, and then again I add some mid details. It's a mess. It's very difficult to understand that graph, and it's super difficult to manage those type of workflow. So it's always good to work in layers, that first I will do the base layer, then I will do the mid, and then I will do the final polish work. So it's always it's better to do it that way, and it's easier to work with, and it's easier to understand as well your graph or your Photoshop file, whatever it is. Then the other point is areas of rest. It's a very important point, I would say, because it's not just about material. It's all over the place. Like if you're working on a composition, if you're working on a architecture building, areas of rest are super important. So I will mostly talk about material here. What I mean here is uh, areas of it. What I mean here is when you start to put detail on your material, you have to be careful how much detail you're gonna put on your material. Don't put detail everywhere, because the minute you put detail everywhere, that detail loses its value. Because when one thing is everywhere, it's not unique. It's like it's everywhere, it's common, so people will, like, for example, if you are making a I will take the example of a brick wall. If you are making a brick wall material and you put cracks and you just put cracks on every single brick, it's not important because it's everywhere. But if you put cracks on one or two brick or maybe three, so every time when you look at it, okay, these bricks are broken, they have some crack, and rest of the things are intact. So those bricks have a different important, and your eye will always travel there. So it's a very important point, and everyone should keep that in mind when you are working on it. Never overdo and never add extra or too much detail to your surface. For me, I mean, a good rule of thumb is 70 to 30. 30% detail and 70% flat area. It's a pretty good, ratio when you are making a material, or I would say anything else. If you have 70% area flat and 30% area has detail, it's a very very good ratio. Even with your compositions as well, I would say never put too much detail, because your eyes will not rest. Actually, you will always go everywhere actually. So it's always good to have some flat area, more flat area, and some detailed areas in your material. And moving forward, next is sense of scale. It happened to me previously multiple times, when I just started creating textures and all those things. I create texture and then I put it in the game, it looks off scale. And what I do, I made my whole texture from scratch to finish without putting it in the game or anything, or next to human. And then when I put it inside the game or next to human, it looks off scale. So from very early stage, since you just block out your material, just the basic shapes you block out, put your texture in the game, or in the engine, and place a character, or a human next to it, and look at your texture, whether it's looking good or it's looking off scale, whether it's on the right scale or it's off scale. Because putting a human next to your texture, you can easily understand the size of the cracks and how big is the brick is. And I would say, not at when you start, you just block out your material, put it in the game, and every next stage, you add some medium details, again export your texture, check it with the human, then you add more detail, you put it in the game and check it with the human scale. It's super important, and it's super easy to get off track. And you can add detail which are white, too big or too small, and it won't look good in the game, because at then it's gonna be in the game and people will play, and character will be next to it. And because materials are quite important, because they are used everywhere, so it's really important to check your scale, how the material is looking inside the game and next to a human. Especially with the micro details of, for example, if you are putting some very micro details, and if they were a little bit bigger in size, they look bad if they are not properly scaled to a human. So yeah, I mean, this is one thing that I would say is really important, and a good practice to follow that. Okay, so this is one thing that is a kind of a practice that I mean, it's very common everywhere, like micro to micro, always go macro to that. I think already explained in previous slide, but I cannot focus emphasize more on this because it is really important. Always go macro to micro. Never try to put details at very early stage, because there are multiple reasons behind it. First thing, when you start putting details at very early stage, you kind of lose your focus from main shapes, and then you start to put more detail and detail rather than focusing on your main shape, like the macro detail. Because your material will be visible from a distance as well. So macro details are really important, because if you're looking at a material from a distance, macro detail won't be visible. Actually, it's going to be mipped or something like that. So you have to nail your macro detail first, and then you should move to micro detail. So first, focus on your big shapes, like how the big shapes are they properly placed, and you can add variation in your big shapes first, and then you go to medium details. Like, for example, if you're making a brick, just make the brick pattern first and look at the size and the number of brick you need in that particular texture. For example, if you are working with a textile density of 512 per meter, so you have to check, like if you are creating a 2K texture, how it's going to be covering 4 meter area, so how many bricks should be there in the 4 meter area at your macro detail. You just count those and put that in the game and check, okay, yeah, this looks fine. Then you move forward, add the basic, mid level details. For example, some kind of bigger and a little bit rotation in your few breaks and rotation, and then you can little bit of scaling, you can change few break a little bit bigger and a little bit smaller, so it will give you a good variation on your at macro level. And then you move forward, and after that you can add some kind of mid-level details like cracks, not cracks, but bigger damages, like sometime your brick is like a little bit bent or something like pushed on the top, so you can add those details as well. And then you go forward, and then you can add damages on the corners and all those things. Then you can go forward, and then you add some cracks on few bricks. And then moving forward, you can add some surface detail as well, like some pores and undulations on the surface, and then go forward with that. But always focus on your, because when you are at macro level, it's super easy to change, and it's super flexible. The minute you start adding more and more details and you go to micro level, it's super difficult to change at macro stage, because there are a lot of things dependent on that, and you change at that stage, and it's kind of a counterproductive to change anything at macro stage when you are at micro. So it's better to spend more time on your macro level, first nail that, and then move on to your micro level. Then comes the readability. Readability is one thing that is I often do when I'm bringing material. What I do for readability. How readability means, like how your material, how good is readable, and how easy is readable when you are looking it in the game. Is it look too noisy, or there's a patch on top of or there's a pattern that you can easily see while looking at your material. It should be easily readable. There won't be like, your eye should not go everywhere in your on your material. It should go where you want actually. So what I do when, like I already wrote, is squinting. What I usually do when I make a material, either I zoom it out and look it from a very small size like this, or I squint my eyes and I see, like, okay, how it looks. Why I used to do it, because when you zoom out your material, especially after doing your micro details or mid-level detail, what you can see after squinting your eyes or zooming out, oftentimes you can see a pattern, a big pattern, or a big patch on your material. That's not good, because stylable materials are repeated quite a lot and on a bigger surfaces. So if you are getting a big patch on your material and it's very readable, so it's not good. You have to take care of that, and you have to change that. So it's very good to check zooming out your material or squinting your eyes, so that there is no visible patch or visible pattern that is very easily readable, so you can just uh, you have to remove it, or you have to control that somehow, so that looking at the distance look like a one big object, not a patch or something like that. And I think, yeah, this is for readability. And then balancing the final result. Balancing the final result is like, once you are done with your material, you feel like, okay, I'm done, this material is completed, you bring it in the game. Then you finally look with the rest of the word as well, the what is next to it. Okay, is it complementing the environment, or uh, is it going pretty well with the rest of the material that is next to the my material. And if it's not that well, then you go back and finalize, and you do the final tweaks to your material and change it accordingly, so that it fits, and it is not popping out like a separate material. So it should be balanced, and it will be like in the game it looks like one, like from one family. It's not a separate thing, it just came out from somewhere and it's in the game. So you balance your material according to your surrounding, according to your game, and everything. So I think this is it for this slide. And then this point, that's quite important, I would say, for the people who are making their portfolio, or who wants to join gaming industry, or anyone who's willing to make their portfolio. So there is a difference between material or any asset and a game ready asset. Well, what's the difference? Why it's important? So because when you are creating a portfolio material, or a portfolio asset or a portfolio environment, you want to show your skills, because what you are capable of. And when you are making anything in a game, you still want to show what you can do, but there are a lot of uh, what we call it, criterias, and there are a lot of limitations in the game. You have budget, in the game budget, texture size budget, memory budget, and textile density budget, and there are different things. There are different measures that you have to take care of while you are creating your material. So you don't have that much of freedom to creating a material in the game. You have more freedom in your personal portfolio to add more and more details. For example, I can give you an example. Both of these material are made by me. The right one is made for the game 9 to 5, and the left one is my personal portfolio material that I have created. So looking at the material, the first one, the portfolio material, it looks like it's quite detailed, and you can see cracks, and one tile is broken, and it's a very nice damage and everything, and lot of surface, even in the variation in the color and pores and everything. But looking at the surface with this render, it looks fine, because you are not gonna see it like in the game, because I just want to show this particular uh, this image. So that's it, I put it on my art station. This is the way I want to show this material, so it looks like that. But I can tell you the reality about this. In this material I have 6 tiles only, and out of 6 tiles, 3 tiles are broken. So just imagine if I gonna use that material in game, and it repeats on like 20-meter area. Every third tile, every second tile is broken, and it looks super bad, and it will look super repetitive. So I cannot use that. Although it looks super good, it has more detail than the material on the right, but I cannot use that in game, because it shows lot of details, but it's useless for the game. Although we can use this as a secondary texture later on to blend with the flat material, but right now we are talking about the base material, so it's kind of useless. But looking at the material on the right, you can see it's quite flat. It don't have that much of details that the left one has, but it can easily be tiled, and there is no such element on the surface where it looks super repetitive. When you put this material on a bigger surface like 8 meter, 10 meters, or 20 meters, it will look very very generic kind of material, and your eye won't pick anything while you use this material on a bigger surface. There is no big cracks or nothing going on this material. Although if we're looking at those two images, it looks like, okay, this material is not that good, it don't have that much detail, and the other one has more detail. But uh, it's important to understand there's a difference between portfolio material and the game ready material. So when you are making your portfolio material, you don't need to worry about textile density or something. I would say, like, put 3 bricks or 4 5 bricks in just a 2K texture. If you want to show how much detail you are able to get, so it's totally fine. But and I would say do that. I mean, it's not a problem, because you want to show your skills. But and for example, on the left hand I use tessellation, so it looks good as well. But oftentimes in game we don't use tessellation. So if you're not able to use tessellation, that material might not look that good as this looks right now. So yeah, there are a lot of measures when you are doing game ready material. And it's super tricky as well. Oftentimes simplest material are the most difficult material, because you don't have much to put on top of that material, but still that material has to look decent and good. So it's a little bit tricky. What detail should I put there? What are the most important details is needed that I need to put, and it should not look repetitive as well. So you have to think in a way, okay, I will extract, let's that what we discussed before, like the aging. You extract details and you look at those details. Okay, this, if I put those detail on top of my material, is it gonna look good or it's gonna look repetitive or it's gonna break my generic look of the material. If it breaks it, then you remove, you don't use that, or you modify it according to the material, or you only pick those details which are important, and which won't look repetitive as well. So yeah, I mean, those are important for your portfolio material and game ready materials. And I guess now it's time for Q&A. I think I have done with my slide.
Yeah, thank you very much, Syed. Very interesting presentation. I would like to say very informative. If you could like maybe put your introduction slide for people to
Yeah,
get your contacts, because sometimes we got a lot of like late questions when
yeah,
person got something that he wants to ask, she wants to ask, but we already done with the presentation. Yeah, thank you very much again. Let me check. Do we have any questions in our chat? At the moment, I don't see anything. So please, with the viewers, if you got any questions, you're more than welcome to ask Said. He'll answer, provide all details that he knows. But at the moment, I've got like a few questions from my side, I
yeah,
would say.
yeah. Please.
So first question is about getting some extra skills, like something that you could, like as a professional, you could learn. And I'm not talking at the moment about some like digital tools that
Mm,
like is super necessary that everyone should learn, but maybe something extra you could person could get like from real life. For example, like we got that university's subject we call like material science or
mhm.
something else, something that could give you extra knowledge, maybe like from but real world that you could realize in a digital world.
So what I usually do, as a texture artist, I observe a lot of material around myself whenever I go out, even on any vacations or anything, and I visit a different place. I am very curious about materials and looking at those, how they are reacting. I mean, everything is around you. So, and those material exist around us, so you can just check those. And oftentimes I wipe my finger on some surface like brick or something, to just to check how the surface looks actually. So it's a really good practice to look around you, and you can observe like how the materials are around you, or not just about material. Even if you are into environment, right, you can just check around your surroundings and see how the buildings are done, how they are, how the arches and all those things are there. So just change a little bit of perspective and look like, and try to visualize things according to your work, near your surroundings, I would say.
I see that makes sense. So, guys, when next time you're gonna go for some vacation in some new place, pay attention to everything around you. That's very nice advice, I would say. We say, but what about something like wider that we call inspiration? Does it really work? Like, I mean, is it possible to find some inspiration in real life that makes your work, better?
I mean, it's inspiration is more about like, because it develops over the time as well. For example, I like photography, so I do a lot of photography as well. And looking since I was doing photography for a while, so and now later on when I was into the environment art and all those, I start to click photos of uh, the surfaces and everything. So it comes from you actually, what you actually like, and it will pull you, to be honest. And in terms of inspiration, you can get inspired by other artists as well,
Mhm.
looking at their work and how they are doing it. And there are a lot of content available right now on internet. I would say just go, and people are pretty open. And I would say talk to them. I mean, there are a lot of people available on Art Station and different places on Discord. Join those things and talk to different artists. Most of them are really open and helping. If you ask them anything, they are really open to answer.
Yes, thank you. So yes, Some of our viewers is asking, do you really collect references when you're on vacation?
Yes,
So
yes.
why not?
I
Why not?
Yeah, I do. I have a like. Nowadays, phones are pretty good. Even though you don't need to carry a camera or something nowadays, so just clicking from your phone and just dumping somewhere in your hard drive or somewhere, it's really cool, because sometimes you are looking for a reference on internet, and you don't find it because you find a like a bigger image, and but you don't have the close up of that material. But when you are next to that surface, you can go click a close up of that surface, and then click a photo from a distance and multiple photos like that. So yeah, you can do it wherever you want, and I do it often.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So yes, we see people they saying you thank you for the presentation was awesome. Alina says, and we got one more question from a viewer. How do you store your personal material portfolio? How much details do you store? Place, date, weather, etc.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you repeat that?
Yes, 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 of course. So the question is, how do you store your personal material portfolio? How many details do you store? Like, for example, place, date, weather, etc. Different details about the pictures.
Okay. So I mean, I put my portfolio material depends upon what type of material I have creating. So I have different kind of structure at my place, and few are like architecture related, few are sci-fi, and few are a hard surface material. So I have a categories, different category, and put those materials over there differently. If I get the question correctly,
Mhm. Gotcha. Let me double check. Do they have any extra questions? I think we've done with questions. So, I just want to like tell you, thank you very much again for your presentation. It was very interesting, very informative.
thank
Maybe
you.
you could just give us some last shot, like some last call to action to junior specialists. Usually, it's also very important to hear some maybe light advice from senior specialists. What to do to for develop your professional career.
Yeah, okay, so my suggestion is like, especially when you are starting, as if you want to work as a material artist and you want to work in especially designer, I would say if you are starting with a designer, don't get frustrated quite early, because sometimes it is bit annoying to get result in designer at very early stage, because a lot of people know how to do texture. For example, in Paint or in Photoshop, it's quite easy. You can bash photos and all those things, and then you can make texture out of it. But designer is a little bit different. It's all node based, and it comes from like from scratch. You have to create things. You cannot use photo or anything. So oftentimes it's like you know how to get the result in different software, but you are not able to achieve the same result in designer. So don't get frustrated. Just it's just a matter of time. If you know how to do your thing, just give some time and be patient and work on your skill. And I'm sure after a while, after a few months, you can see. Just keep your first material with you and check your material after 3 months. You will auto, and if you're working on that regularly, you will see a huge difference, and you can find it like, okay, I was there and now I am here. So it's just a matter of patience, and just be patient and just work on that. That's my advices with, especially
Pretty,
with the
pretty,
material.
pretty, pretty simple, but it definitely works. Yes. So thank you very much again. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending our time with us. It was Syed from Redhill Games Company. And I want to tell you that we're going to have some coffee break and see you in 1 hour. Thank you again,
Okay,
Syed. Have a great day.
thank you, bye bye.